What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Thoughts with Nick. I got two quotes for you today. The first one is from St. Augustine, and what he had to say was, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only a page." And St. Augustine was a famous church father. He lived in the 4th and 5th century, and he's the patron saint of brewers, printers, philosophers, and theologians. And second, we have Aldous Huxley, and what he said was, to travel is to discover that everyone is wrong about other countries. And I know not too long ago I discussed one of Huxley's books. He's a favorite author of mine. So if you're up for it, purchase one of his books, check it out. I really like his work. So anyway, to get into it, I have a special guest with me here today. I'm really excited for this one. This guy right here is a personal role model and inspiration to me. Happens to also be the father of a couple of my close friends. And what we're going to discuss today is travel. So getting right into it, this is Mr. Biskowitz. And if you want to just introduce yourself briefly, we can start from there.
Sounds great, Nick. So, well, first of all, if you're cool with it, call me Mark.
Okay.
Otherwise I have to call you Mr. Nick. And I don't want to do that. So, I guess first of all, I'd like to say that I am actually I'm a big fan of Thoughts with Nick. I think you do a great job. Your podcasts are insightful. They are respectful of other people's opinions, and you're very philosophical. A hell of a lot more philosophical than me, as demonstrated by those two quotes. Now, I have read some Huxley, but I can honestly say I've never read St. Augustine. So
I'm with you there.
So my name is Mark Biskowitz, and I also appreciate that you're opening your channel to the elderly. That's really cool. So it's a new direction for you, and this is new for me as well. So hopefully I won't be too jittery.
All right, so getting started, as you can see in the frame, there's various pictures on the wall which attest to the avid and frequent travel that he's done and his family's done together over the years. So to start off, I'm curious, how did you first get into travel? Was this something that was instilled in you from your parents? How did it become kind of like a hobby and a priority within your life?
Okay, yeah, good question. Actually, before I talk about this, isn't this where you bring out the hot, spicy wings, or no?
That's the next episode.
Oh, okay. I might be confusing you with someone else, but anyway. But yeah, so it's interesting. Growing up, I never traveled much with my family because my dad, he was an engineer, and he did quite a bit of company business travel. So I think when he was home, he wasn't too keen on actually traveling. The only travel we did was on some of his conventions. Our family would go, and it was more like camp. I just played while he did his conventioning. So I would say the first exposure I had to travel for me was when I was 15 years old. So it was July of 1979. I remember it well because it was after my freshman year in high school, so I'm kind of dating myself. But I spent 3 weeks in Paris, France. Okay, now, wow. What was interesting is my dad, I won't go into his history, but he was a war child. He was on the run during the war. And after the war, he made a stop in Paris, France, and he befriended this family. And he kept in touch with them over the years. And then when they had kids, and myself and my brothers, we became the next generation of friends. So it was always a rite of passage around our mid-teens to go to each other's countries and spend a few weeks.
Wow, that's really incredible. That's unique. And it's awesome that you had a second generation bond, you know what I mean? It started with your father and then transitioned into his kids and the other family's respective kids as well. So that trip, when you were 15, was that solo with your brothers? Did your parents join you?
It was totally solo. So at that time, I had not been out of really the confines of our small community, really. And so this was the first time. It was an amazing trip, and it changed my views on everything. So it was I was alone. I didn't speak the language other than 1 year French in high school. So all I can do is like, I could say, Je m'appelle Mark. My name is Mark. Je m'appelle Mark. Je m'appelle Mark. So that after that, like, oh, I was lost. But so you're in a foreign country, not speaking the language. I had to get around on my own sometimes. I mean, they went around with me, but at times, like I took the metro by myself. I had to figure things out. I did a lot of touristy things there, like, the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, Louvre, and all that kind of stuff. So I got exposed to a different culture. And it was sort of eye-opening because, for example, for their lunches, I grew up, if I spent, at that time, more than, let's say, 4 minutes eating lunch, it was amazing, like at home. Like I was, I'm grabbing the sandwich out the door and there, like in the middle of the day, we sat down for a 2-hour lunch.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a little bit different. In hindsight, I'm thinking there's probably a happy medium between 4 minutes and 2 hours, but, and it was cool. They also, they served even us, they served like wine with lunch. And, you could see that it had a different cultural mindset than we had here in America. And I think, even their views towards alcohol, I'm thinking, yeah, it's a little bit different and so forth. So I also was there for their 4th of July, which was called Bastille Day. So they had a huge parade. And it was, it was the first time I kind of realized that the world is a lot bigger place than my community, basically. So that was the first trip.
Yeah, that's really cool. And what you mentioned there, it kind of reminds me, I was in Italy only for a week, but very similar in terms of the mealtime practices, I guess you could say, where it's much more relaxed, have a glass of wine. You're not getting drunk, but it's
right.
Traditional to kind of just have a glass with the meal. And then I'm curious, was it custom to like go for a walk afterwards? Because that was something I remember from Italy, it was very traditional to go for a brief walk after the meal before you settle back into whatever it is, the second half of the workday, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. It was common just to, as you said, just to walk it off a little bit. And even that was social. So it was a much more social society, I felt at the time. Yeah.
And it's really interesting, just kind of the juxtaposition there of American versus European culture in the way that they approach things. Because like you said, I feel like your situation and your story is very relatable, of grabbing something and out the door, a very brief lunch, in and out, on the run, on the fly, whatever. Versus over there, you're speaking of France, I'm speaking of Italy, different countries, and almost a very similar experience there, and it quite different from over here. So it's interesting, their approach to food, meals, life in general in terms of pace. So that's interesting.
Exactly, and the food was another aspect I remember well. It was an exposure to something other than like grilled cheese or something like that, or it gave me my first appreciation for like cultural foods, which continues to this day with Pauline when we travel. So
that's awesome. Was there anything you remember specifically in terms of a meal from that trip or similar trips to France in particular?
Well, I mean, they do things like, frog legs and that kind of stuff. And I'm fine just experimenting with new foods. I'm not, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't eat bugs in China. I don't know. But but generally, I'm very open-minded to experiment and try anything once. So
I got to say, at 15, that's a bit impressive for me. Now I'm good, but when I was younger, somewhat picky. So that frog legs, I don't know if I would have been quite as ambitious as you.
Yeah, so that was the first overall trip. And then I would say our travel later became very adventure driven. And so I didn't travel for a while after that. But in high school, there was a teacher. And interestingly enough, he was a social studies teacher, but I didn't even have him. He wasn't even my teacher. But so it's interesting that perhaps the most influential teacher in high school was someone I never even had as a teacher. But he used to go out west with a group of kids every year. And what he did was, when he came back, he put together these slideshows of his experience. And he put it, and in the background, he put together like music that was appropriate to being out in the mountains and so forth. And I was memorized by these like slideshows. I'm like, wow, I got to do that someday. So that was sort of planted in the back of my mind. And then at 21, so now I'm a junior in college, I had my first opportunity to actually do what I would say adventure travel. So I'll set the stage by like saying this. Like, so imagine like a wanted ad, right? That says wanted, 4 young, irresponsible college students, wanted to fly out west, okay, tour around for 3 weeks, and then pick up an RV, okay, and this was the parents of my friends, and take that RV and drive across country, okay. So what they did is they drove it across country, they did their thing, and then we flew out there, picked up the RV, did our thing, and we were responsible for driving it back.
Okay.
Okay. So it was myself and 3 other kids, and it was the most unbelievable experience. So our first national park was Yellowstone in Wyoming. And I mean, this was a 34-foot Winnebago, and it was a house on wheels. It was gorgeous. I mean, it had a kitchen, it had like all your amenities like microwave, stove, refrigerator, toilet, and the premise was really simple. There would be a driver. We took turns driving. There would be a co-pilot, okay, and his responsibility was to co-pilot, and he had to remain sober. And then there would be like 2 people basically getting shit-faced in the back of the RV, and then we would rotate. That's kind of how it worked for like 3 weeks. So, but it was also, that's where I fell in love with nature. We did hikes every day, and in also the Tetons and some other national parks and Mount Rushmore and so forth. And that's when I knew that this was the kind of travel that I wanted to do.
You knew that was the lifestyle for you?
I knew that was the lifestyle for me. And it's weird, your memories of trips, because every trip in itself, I mean, it's an experience. And I remember, this is just a silly thing, my friend's mother bought a little plant, okay? It was in a Dixie cup. It was a seedling, okay? It was this big, okay? And she said, guys, I just have one favor for you. Just nurture this plant and bring it back, and because I'd like to grow this plant, when you get home. So for 4 guys, that was our only responsibility, and I swear, maybe within a half hour after they left, we set up some beers on the table. We're playing cards, we're drinking, whatever, and this plant kept falling on the floor. We kept like shoveling the dirt back into the cup. We probably watered it with beer more than we watered it with water, and when we pulled finally back to New Jersey where they lived, I mean, this plant never had a chance. We tried to get it mouth to mouth, the plant. We tried to do CPR on it, but I felt bad. It was our one responsibility, but hopefully we learned to be more responsible after that.
Well, maybe the parents were a little too ambitious in their own right in trusting a group of young men with such a bold endeavor.
I thought so too. I thought they had very unrealistic expectations of us.
I feel like that trip that you just described is something that really anyone, I don't want to get too specific here, but in America specifically could benefit greatly from, just because our country, kind of quite different from European countries, is so vast and wide ranging. And I went on a road trip 2024, so I had just turned 24. And before that, I traveled a little internationally, a little within the States, but not west at all. So it was kind of almost the reverse of your trip, except we drove both ways. It was me and my dad. And before that, I had no exposure to really anything west of Pennsylvania. And it totally broadened my horizons, opened my eyes to, different landscapes within the country, different what's out there in terms of different states. And specifically with our area, in recent years, there's kind of been a lot of new housing, urbanization, everything like that. So it kind of, in my head, I guess I had the perspective that was going on across the board. And then you go out a little bit, just wide open spaces everywhere. And it just blew my mind of, wow, I was kind of trapping myself in a very limited mental lens, and it was not representative of really very, very much at all outside of my own small area that I'm from. So similar to what you said, very eye-opening experience. And what I think everyone personally could benefit from is just seeing the country, seeing the different landscapes and everything that the country has to offer, because it's so different from one state to another and from one geographic location to another, like Badlands, for example, into Colorado and then out to California. And even within California, there's so much fluctuation. It's it's breathtaking, it's awe-inspiring, and I think young people today would really benefit from that kind of exposure, getting out of the house. Like you said, it totally began your love of nature and your inspiration to travel. And I think that's something that we really need to try and inspire and instill in the youth of, similar to what St. Augustine said, the world is a book. And if you're like I was previously and you're trapped in your own kind of area, even though I had traveled, it wasn't, I guess, there wasn't as much depth as I would have liked. And you're not going to end up reading the rest of the book that is the world if you maintain exposure to only one page or even one chapter for that matter. That's not representative of the whole book. So if you're listening to this and you haven't had the opportunity, I would say try and save some money, save some time if you can, and make it a point to get out there and do that. See the country, and if you can, see the world too. It's going to take time, it'll take years, but it's worth doing. So building on that point, my next question for you, now that you kind of explained to us where this love began, I'm really curious, because his two sons that I grew up with, right, these are high class athletes. They played a variety of sports growing up, and what I talked about in my last video was the major time commitment that's required by sports as a kid. And well, that was one aspect of my discussion, but regardless, sports as a kid it's a serious commitment to practice, to games. I know they did travel baseball, so going wherever that dictates, it's a serious obligation. And so I want to know how you were able to continue to incorporate travel as your career advanced and as your family developed and grew over the years.
Okay, yeah, good question. So a few thoughts on that. I guess, first of all, I feel very blessed. I try to keep a track of some of the trips we do. So I know that with our family, as a whole family, we have done about 75 trips.
Wow.
Okay, and those are like multi-day, go-away type trips. And again, I feel very fortunate to have done that. I didn't want to get to, when my kids were, in their mid-20s and say, I regret not having done this. So, and I guess a couple things around that. So we did as much as we could until they graduated from college. And now, whatever, they're living their lives, they're settling in, and they've totally abandoned their parents. But I'm okay with that, No, I'm just kidding. So, first of all, I guess I would say, if one of my very basic sayings, I'm not as philosophical, but if there's a will, there's a way. It's very simple. And if you enjoy something, and travel we enjoyed, and we weren't going to let the kids hinder our lifestyle. So when they were a few months old, we had the baby carriers, and we had them in the carriers, and we're doing our walking and our hiking, and that went to bike riding, and then that started going to camping and so forth. We could talk a little bit more about that. But and then, yeah, they started doing a lot of sports. But again, it was fun, but it's just sports. Okay, so it wasn't, I didn't mind missing something. It was more as a courtesy to their teammates and the coach not to miss something. But for my kids and us, it wasn't a big deal. So I would typically schedule things, first of all, to make things happen, I would while I'm working, towards the end of every year, I would sit down and just map out travel for the year. And that could be 4 trips. And it could be spring break. It could be 2 trips in the summer, one in July, one in August, and then Christmas. We very often went to California because that's where I met Pauline, and that's where Pauline's parents continued to live. Okay. So I planned them out. I came in after the new year, and I told my manager, these are the days I want to take off. Okay, because I know when the holidays rolled around, it's everyone's vying for the same time, but he couldn't argue with me. I put in 11 and a half months in advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing I like to do with these trips also is I would commit. I would either book a flight, book a hotel, book something. Once you make that first commitment, it's going to happen.
Yeah. There's no backing out. Yeah,
life gets in the way and shit happens and stuff, but we were determined to make these trips happen. So, again, for the most part, maybe we'd miss a game here and there, but again, it's just a game, and travel was just so much more important to us, and it was rewarding, and it was a family activity. So, we had a good balance. It just didn't get in the way, basically.
Not to backtrack to my last video, but it's so impressive and interesting to hear you talk about how you were able to kind of keep sports not necessarily on the back burner, but it wasn't the end all be all, because I feel like a lot of people, they end up letting that commitment rule their lives, and it totally prevents the situation that you just described, where you have that freedom and flexibility to get out and about and do those things. You're not tied down per se. So I think it's really cool that you were able to kind of have that perspective and instill that in the kids at a young age, that this is a part of life, but that's it, right?
Absolutely. And we could talk about it a little bit later on, because I think we could talk about activities, but basically my mindset with them is the same I had with myself. I grew up, this is a little bit of digression, but I grew up just total unstructured play. There wasn't all this travel ball, and it was awesome. I would leave the house like right after breakfast, and then I would wait till like at 6 o'clock, I hear like, get your ass in the house for dinner. and other than that, I'm running around all day playing. And I wanted my kids to have as much unstructured play as possible. I mean, we did the organized travel ball and stuff, and it served its purpose, and I'm sure, yeah. But that was always, I kind of wanted to groom them for, expose them to a lot of things like in life and like travel, but also sports, just expose them to stuff. So like I am now, just later in life, I can just enjoy sports for its other aspects. It's physio, it's social aspects, and that, so now they can graduate to corporate softball leagues and that kind of stuff, and it's just fun and it's not stressful. That was my mindset with them even back then.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So next, what I want to get into, since you've been everywhere, right? What I want to get into is first top 5. We'll do 3 to 5. Your favorite places, and then after that, 3 general recommendations that are must see for ideally for everyone, that are maybe a little more accessible, because I know you and Pauline, and sometimes with the kids, you've done some pretty ambitious backpacking, everything in, all that kind of stuff, and realistically, unfortunately, not everyone's gonna be able to make that commitment. I think maybe you could touch on, maybe some of those will fall into your personal favorites, but then just to frame it out a little bit so you know what I'm looking for. Okay. Then the secondary part is more so of things that everyone should be able to do and should do if they have the opportunity. So first, personal favorites, and take it from there.
So it's hard to just talk about a few favorites. I think travel, like a lot of things, it's personal to the individual, and as you can tell, I'm passionate about travel. I love talking about it, and I love talking to people to help plan their trips. And I was told, like, in another life, maybe I should have been like a travel agent or a travel blogger or something like that. But so in talking to people, I like asking them, like, what do you enjoy and that kind of stuff. And then from there, we can cater or tailor a trip to them. And I really enjoy that sort of thing. For me, it was always tended to be more adventure focused. So I would say if I would have different categories. So, and I know it would be nice to see maybe some of these pictures. We can do it maybe afterwards. Do you think that would make sense?
Yeah, so if you want to talk about some of the destinations, afterwards, we can walk around the room a little bit, get them on the camera, and then set back up for the second half. Okay,
we can do that, or do you want to do it now, or how do you want to do it, or?
Why don't we do it now? And while we're walking around, you can explain, I guess, what we're looking at.
Okay. Okay, so let me start with adventure travel. So this is one of our more recent trips. I created this animal montage here. So went recently to the Serengeti in Tanzania with Pauline. And I used to love watching like National Geographic specials on TV. I would just watch these documentaries. I thought the coolest job was like a photographer out in the wild, just tracking animals and taking videos of it. So it was natural for me to want to do like a safari type adventure. So we went to the Serengeti, and it was just really cool. So we saw like a lot of animals there. They talk about the big 5. So typically lion, elephant, rhinoceros, and leopard, and buffalo. Those are like the big 5. And it's interesting, the rhino in Tanzania, the white rhino is actually, it's extinct. There's 2 females left in the world, and they have like, they collected like some sperm from some males, and they're trying to, repopulate, I guess, but it's a very difficult process. But there are some black rhinos, okay? So we saw a couple black rhinos from far, but these are pictures I took on our trip, and I loved just observing animals, you're learning about their behaviors. We saw a lot of pride of lions, and one thing that was cool is we saw pride. It looks like after they ate, because we saw like blood on them.
Yeah.
And then they were walking towards like a river to drink after they ate. So that we thought was
Cleanse the palate.
Yes, we thought that was really cool. This is one of my favorite pictures. So we saw these 3 cheetahs. They were actually on a hunt. And you can, I don't know if you can see this picture, maybe not this one, but there's impalas in the background, okay? And we saw like one kind of circling this way. We saw one circling this way. And they were trying to surround them, and then they ran, but the impalas this time got away. Okay. And after that hunt was done, the 3 of them kind of converged on this little mound right near the side of the road. What's cool there is like they were Toyota Land Cruisers, they're like Jeeps. And they're open on top, so you can stand and you have a panoramic view, and you can try to spot wildlife. It was really cool. And the animals are not bothered by the Land Cruisers. They're
used to it?
They're used to it. So as long as you stay inside the vehicle, you're fine. If you venture out, you're on your own. So after that, they just came on this mound, and they were just kind of resting up probably for the next hunt. And it's kind of cool. They're on a mound because they want to be a little bit elevated so they can kind of see the landscape and see what's out there. The other thing we saw, it's hard to see, but this is a baby wildebeest. But we were there we were hoping to see the wildebeest migration. I don't know if you've ever seen that on TV.
No.
Okay. So in the north of Serengeti, there's Mara River, okay? And on one side is Tanzania, on the other side is Kenya. Okay. It's called Masai Mara on the Kenyan side. It's called Serengeti on the Tanzania side. And depending on food and water, these wildebeests will migrate, but they have to cross a river. Okay. And we're parked at the river's edge, and it's this is like real life. I mean, it's survival of the fittest. At the bottom, we see like a lot of crocodiles, and they're just waiting for this crossing. And at the top, we tried this for 2 days. It's not like on a schedule. So we just waited and waited. And there are thousands of wildebeest, like herds, just at the river's edge. And they're looking, across the other side, and they're moving this way, and then they're moving this way. And, we were hoping to see a crossing. It's one of the most amazing things to see. And, when you just need that one rogue wildebeest to just like say fuck it and make a run for it, and then you get thousands to follow. But
so that's what I was going to ask. You pretty much answered my question there. When they go.
They all go.
Okay.
But you need that one crazy one to go first, and that one crazy one never went while we were there. So we did not actually see wildebeest migration, but we saw plenty of things still, which is
that's
really
awesome. And those are excellent pictures too. While you were talking, I was zooming in on a few of them while you were explaining what was what. So it should have some excellent footage for the viewer.
Excellent. All right. So that was, I would say, one of our last adventure trips. I would say, let me move this out of the way. I can talk a little bit about, so one of the last things we did once the kids graduated, we were very fortunate to do one last family trip. We went to Nepal, and Pauline and I spent like a month there trekking around the country. But Josh and Ryan joined us for 2 weeks, and we did 2 treks. But the one that Josh and Ryan joined us on was Everest Base Camp. Okay?
Wow.
And that was an awesome experience. So this is near Everest Base Camp. And what you did, we stayed in tea houses. They're very simple, rustic. Some have shared bathrooms, but the food is very good, but there's not many amenities there. But, but it's shelter. And this was the last morning before we started our descent. And there's a little village here called Gorakshep, and it's hard to see, but we kind of walked up here. And this is across from, this is a trail called Kala Patar, okay? And Everest Base Camp, I'll show you another picture in a second, but Everest Base Camp is about 17,600 feet.
Wow.
Kala Patar is about 18,500 feet, so it's actually a little bit higher. And I'll talk about travel in a second because I know you're planning on going to Colorado and so forth. But the big thing about Everest is, trekking at elevation is a totally different game than trekking at sea level here.
Yeah, I've done 8,000 feet. I can't imagine another 10 on top of that.
Did you feel it? A little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So in Colorado, you have the 14,000 peakers. So if you don't acclimate and you just go like right to a 14,000 peak, you will like feel like a little bit woozy and stuff. So you can imagine like closer to 18,000 feet. Now they do acclimation days, which I thought would be, we get to rest and that's kind of cool. But they were tough too, because what you do is you go up quite a bit during the day and then you come back down and then that prepares you for going up and staying up the next day.
Okay.
So those were the acclimation days. So this is actually, I thought this was like a sunrise. We got up at like 4:30 in the morning. This actually here is Everest in the picture.
Okay.
And just to give you an idea of the culture, because it's so much part of the culture, and one of the reasons I like to travel, and I think you asked like what would I recommend, if people can do it, I recommend if you can do an international trip, even to like a developing country, because it really, one, gives you an appreciation for other cultures and how difficult it is for many people. Like a lot of these places, there's shanties and that kind of stuff. And it's sad, but it gives you perspective. It's real. It gives you perspective. And you're less likely to take things for granted that you have. So that's to me, that's an important part of travel. But the people were super nice. So this is another picture from Nepal. And I think this is a pretty cool picture because they have a lot of these temples. And so here you can see, these are the Himalayas in the background. These things you see everywhere, and I actually have some of these hanging in my happy place upstairs.
Oh yeah.
They're called prayer flags, and each color, there's like 5 colors, represent something like wisdom, strength, compassion, and so forth. And they also represent like the elements, like water, fire, air, earth. Sky, that kind of stuff. So I thought very symbolic. It really kind of touched me.
Is that a part of their spiritual belief system?
Very much so.
Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty incredible.
And then here you can see these like cylinders. These are called mani wheels or prayer wheels.
Okay.
And what you do, it's just kind of cool. Like you just go through and you kind of spin them clockwise, I think is the way. And that's supposed to represent good luck, fortune, wisdom, good karma, that kind of stuff. So, the cool part about traveling is you get to see these cultural things. So, so we went and spun all of them. We'll see. But I thought this is a pretty good representation of like what the country is and so forth.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then this.
Yeah, I'll show you this little picture here. So this was when we actually arrived at Everest Base Camp. So that's kind of cool. That's the family there.
Bundled up as you should be.
And
that is cool.
There is a little bit of a funny story there. I'll tell it, I guess. You could always edit things. As I mentioned, at altitude, it's a very different type of hiking, and it wasn't easy for Pauline. She's a trooper, and I've been dragging her around for 30 years. She's been following me, and she's been a great sport, but. The altitude kind of got to her, and the day before she was like really feeling it, and I don't know what, like it was just affecting her. She was like talking in tongues and stuff like that. I don't know what she was doing, but she felt like, I don't know if I can go on and so forth. So we joke that she said that second to last day before we made the final ascent, she said that I want a divorce. Okay, we joke, but what I heard was I want a horse. Okay, so for that last day, it was best money I ever spent in my life. I rented a horse for the day, and the horse's name is Dorche. Okay, it was a white horse, and to this day, she loves Dorche more than me. But I'm okay with that. And that horse got her to the top, and then after that, she was fine on the way down. She was acclimating very well. So that was just cool. Little stories that happen.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that was I'd say a third favorite trip. So this trifecta of pictures here. This was a trip we did in 2018. It was Norway.
Okay.
So after I'd say maybe a bunch of travel in the U.S. We started doing one trip in the summer overseas and one trip in the U.S. for the last maybe 6 years or so. So Norway was a special trip. These are 3 of the most incredible hikes that I've done. These are like, you see them, these are like Instagram moments for people. But so this one here is called Prekestolen. So what was cool is the night before we did this hike, it's about a 4-hour hike, the movie Mission Impossible 4 called Fallout or something, I think it's called, but Mission Impossible 4 was filmed here, part of the last scene where Tom Cruise is hanging from the thing. So the night before, we didn't see it the night before, but they did a special showing of the movie on top here.
Wow.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's funny.
And we actually
timing.
saw the movie in preparation for our trip. That's how we prepared. So this is like 2,000 feet, sheer drop.
Straight down.
Straight down. Okay. This is crazy too. This one is called Kajarag Bolton. Okay. And it's exactly what it looks like. It's 2 mountains with just a rock wedged in between. So here you can see the kids walked out on this rock while my wife was freaking out. But it was just a really cool hike. This was about a 6-hour hike to get there.
I gotta say, every time I've been over here, that's one that's caught my eye. So I'm happy to hear a little backstory on it because it just, like you said, that's an Instagram picture right there.
Yeah.
That's one that warrants a question or two. It's really cool.
And then this one is the 3rd hike we did. This was a long hike. This was like 10 hours. So,
wow.
It's all part of the experience. We got up at 4 in the morning. We wanted to get parking and that kind of stuff. This is called La Trolltunga, which means troll's tongue. And I think you can see it like looks like a tongue.
Yeah, that's an apt name, I would have to say.
Yeah. And this is also, I think this may be close to 3,000 foot drop.
Wow.
Straight down. So
I feel like that's really different from the U.S. If we were over here, the safety precautions, you'd be hard pressed to get out there.
Yeah, I agree. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, so that was, I'd say, one of our favorite trips.
Those are excellent pictures.
So in the U.S., I think you asked also if I talk about U.S. favorite trips.
Just a couple that might be a little more accessible, I guess, for the common man.
Okay.
Because
if there's a will, there's a way, Nick.
I agree with you, but just 10-hour hike, I would love to do that. Yeah. But a lot of people,
right?
Maybe 1 to 2. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Well, that eliminates half of these pictures. All right. I'll talk about. There's one area I would say in the Western United States that I think like 3 or 4 of our coolest experiences have been. Okay. Some are more accessible than others, but I'll cover them off because there's pictures of all 4. So this is one. This is called Lake Powell in Utah. Okay. And what I had done this many years when I was living in California with friends, and I went back with the family, and it's hard to see, but there's like a houseboat here. Okay. And what you do is you just rent a houseboat. It's great for multifamilies. So maybe one year instead of going to the Outer Banks, North Carolina, you go there, and you can get anywhere from like a 40 to 70 foot houseboat, and we just toured around for like 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
And you park on the side. It's private. It's just and gosh, at night the stars were like unlike anything I ever saw.
That's what I was just gonna ask. I can't imagine.
And it's the stars, and I also remember where I'm like you can hang out. We hung out on the roof of the houseboat, and we heard like the wind howling and the stars. It was just such a cool, eerie experience.
Yeah, very, very exposed to nature there. Very isolated. That's awesome.
So this one right below, this is the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
I thought so.
Okay, so we've hiked twice with the kids there, and that is also a cool experience. Now again, it's not your 1 to 2 hours, but it's probably 5 hours down and maybe 7 hours up.
Okay.
There's 2 different trails you can take. You typically take a different one going down and a different one up. And what we did is we camped at the bottom. There's something called Bright Angel Campground, and we, the things you have to book it in advance, obviously, and it's along the river there, and once we hiked in spring break in April, that was pretty good. Once we hiked in July, and my recommendation is do not hike it in July. It was crazy, crazy hot. Just to give you an idea, they call the bottom of the Grand Canyon the box because it just traps in the hot air. So at the bottom there in the sun, it was like 126 degrees.
Wow.
And it was like 108 maybe in the shade. So we got to the bottom. We got up like 4 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning to beat most of it. But when we got to the bottom, we were just so exhausted. The river was right there. There was 5 of us actually. We just went in the river fully clothed and just laid down. It felt like the best feeling in the world.
I can't imagine. That's some brutal heat. That is crazy.
Yeah.
So as far as the Grand Canyon goes, I've been there myself, and that is one that I would recommend as well. You know, even if I haven't had the opportunity yet to actually do the full hike, I was on a little bit of a time crunch, but I did get to see both rims, and it's just incredible. You know, even if that's all you do, has to be. I would put that as a must-see destination if you're within the U.S. You have to see it. It's so just. You can see a picture and okay, wow, that's pretty far from side to side, right? But I was mystified. I was blown away when I saw it in person, just with the scale of this chasm.
Yes.
And pictures don't do it justice. You know, it's one of those things where that expression couldn't be more true. So if that's one, you know, even if you're not able to do the full hike, like I haven't been able to yet, I can't recommend it enough. Just as something to see, a bucket list. You know, you got to do it.
I recommend it for sure, and you know, it's just interesting because some people through hike from the South Rim to the North Rim, which may be 26 miles or something.
Wow.
I don't recommend that, but just to give you an idea, like you saw the South Rim and the North Rim, you said. To drive that is like 220 miles. So, you know, it's like 10 times further than just hiking to the bottom. But that just gives you an idea of the vastness of the area and stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say, what was cool though also at the bottom, there is a place you can lodge called Phantom Ranch. We didn't stay there, but they offer steak dinners down there. And so when we stayed down there one time, like I treated the family to a steak dinner, and that steak never tasted better after hiking down there. And they had cold lemonade as well. So you remember like little details, like oh my gosh. So that's one. But the one thing I will say is you have to be prepared, and especially in July, the danger is real. I mean, that's one caveat is that I learned through travel is you really have to be prepared. So. Just to give you an idea, in July, there were 2 heart attack fatalities while we were there, literally while we were there. And there was a flash flood that washed away a woman that also died on that trip. So
wow.
3 fatalities. So, I mean,
yeah,
just gives you a perspective.
Caution is strongly advised.
Yeah. All right, so that's the second in that area. The third in that area, and these are all pretty close, is this one. Now, this one's a little bit, it requires like running a lottery. So, this is called the Wave, or North Coyote Butte. And you can see it's sort of like wavy sandstone formations. And because they limit it, there were like very few people there, which is, it's the pros and cons of these sort of things. Like you want it accessible to people, but you don't want to ruin the experience for everyone. So, but what was cool is I felt like I was like on another planet or in a movie set or something. It was just like surreal with the formations and stuff. It was just very cool.
It looks awesome. I mean, what state was that in?
So this is, it's called North Coyote Butte, or the Wave. It's right on the border of Utah and Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really impressive formation.
And then the last one I'll talk about in the same area. So and again, this is also like a lottery, but this is, I thought was beautiful too. This is called Havasu Falls. And it's part of like around the Grand Canyon, there's like maybe 10 to 12 like Native American tribes. So this is on Havasupai land. But this is also a hike down. You have to carry, the other thing I learned also is on these hikes where you're camping or doing whatever, you have to carry, hiking with load is very different than just hiking with like a day pack and stuff, especially when you have to carry 3 or 4 days worth of food and your sleeping bag and that kind of stuff. But this had like 3 or 4 waterfalls, and this was like, I mean, you could see the turquoise water. It was just beautiful. So,
yeah. Do you guys swim there?
We didn't swim. Well, actually, we didn't swim here, but there's another picture where we did swim. If you want to swing around, that's another waterfall. It's called Beaver Falls. We swam there. You can see it was like a multi-tiered layer. That place we swam.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right. So if you want to sit back down,
sure.
We can wrap up the travel section. So let's see. So you touched on it a little bit there, specifically regarding the Grand Canyon. That's something I wanted to touch on during our conversation. Is any unforeseen challenges or I guess unforeseen challenges or unexpected pitfalls that you ran into during travel that maybe you had to adjust on the fly, or just something you wish you were better prepared for and maybe could prepare someone else for?
Yeah, I mean,
I can think of one you told me about.
Which one's that?
In Colorado, snowstorm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was around the time of year you were there too, I think, right? Yeah, I mean, it's travel. So I do put a lot of effort up front in trying to make sure like trips will go as seamless as possible, and the things you can control, like, confirming everything, planning out things. I like to plan things, but then build in spontaneity. I think that's the right balance, because if you spend too much time, like something's unplanned and you have to, find a place. And we talked about it before, like pitfalls, like the West, it's just so vast and open. Like, you don't know how many times that yellow light came on, like almost out of gas. And then it says like next gas station 122 miles, and so we've run out of gas before, because it's just not like here. There's a Wawa on every corner, so you do have to plan and stuff, and that sets your mindset now. Like when our gas even here gets to like a quarter, I'm finding a gas station. I don't want to and that was borne out on these trips and stuff. The other thing, I guess, I mean, travel I know can be very expensive, and one of the things is that is what we spend our discretionary income on. Like that's what's important to our family. We typically don't like go out to eat. We're not into materialistic things, so that's where we opt to put our money. But travel is expensive, and I know it is could be cost prohibitive for a lot of people. So you have to keep your budget in mind for sure, and planning it is a lot. It takes a lot of effort, especially if you want it to go off seamlessly. So. Some people opt to go with like organized tours and stuff, and that's fine, but you're going to pay a premium for that. But what I found was there's so many good people like that blog their trips online and shared itineraries. So I always use that as a starting point for when I plan a trip, and then customize it and book details from that. So that's what I recommend, is use the resources out there if you want to plan something yourself.
All right, so final question to wrap up the travel section. Is there any funny, interesting, just capstone type story that you want to recall or briefly share? Something that throughout all the trips really is front of mind, so to speak. It could be good, it could be bad, just it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to that question, your other one is, like shit happens when you travel. And my philosophy always with that is, do what you can about the things you can control, the stuff you can't control. Like don't sweat it. Like you can't do anything about it, right? So try to make the best of that situation. So, I mean, we've seen things like, we've gone on trips where, our luggage didn't arrive till like 4 days later, for example. Norway was the perfect example. We had a layover in Iceland, and I can see on the tarmac or whatever, I can see our bags, and I can see we're on the plane, and I'm like, I don't think our bags are going to be on the plane. And the challenge, so when we had landed in Norway, our bags were not on the plane, no surprise. And the problem with our trips is, we don't get someplace and just like hang out for a couple of days. We're on the move. So immediately, we land in Oslo or whatever, and we hop in a car and we drive away. So it took us 4 days before our luggage could catch up with us, So we, you learn, like, maybe in your carry-on bag, pack like a day or two worth of clothes, stuff. You learn little things like that. But we basically didn't have anything with us for 4 days. But it's part of the experience. We went to an H&M in Norway, and we bought like all clothes there. And we joked. It was funny. Like the style was a little bit different. I'm not into fashion, but the clothes were like It was like the European versions of our family, like that for 4 days. We were kind of joking. This is the European versions of us, because just the clothes were a little different. But so that's one example of something that happened on one of our trips. Let's see. Trying to think what else. I mean, things always went wrong, but we kind of rolled with it, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
That was the story I was hoping you would tell.
Yeah.
Josh mentioned that one to me before, and I don't know how you were able to keep it together, man. Seeing the luggage going somewhere else. I mean, what can you do at that point? Like you said, you got to just roll with it. But it would have been burning me up, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's a good stopping point for the travel conversation. So moving into the second half, this will be a little more brief, but you're in impressive shape for your age, and just to give the viewer a brief background, we've known each other easily 10 years at this point. And going back to high school days, we did a 4-on-4 flag football league. And this guy right here was the all-time quarterback. And I'll tell you what, he could put the ball on you. And this past year, tailgate at Penn State, 5-6 years removed from the high school days, he still got it. Still, as you can tell when he was showing us around the place, showing some pictures, you can tell his physique, for his age. It's incredible. It's incredible, impressive, and commendable. So what I'm curious about is, similar to the travel stuff, was health always a priority for you, and how have you been able to maintain your longevity so robustly?
Yeah, all right, I'll answer that. Just one comment on those football games. They were a lot of fun, and I thought they were the perfect game. It was flag football, but you guys were, I just enjoyed running around with you guys, and it would be the kind of flag football where someone would, let's say, catch or running with the ball, and then someone would grab them to slow them down, and then they'd throw them on the ground, and then it would be muddy, and they'd rub their face in the mud, and then while they're laying down there pulverized, you would just lift the flag off of them. It was that kind of football sometimes.
The flags are a suggestion.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it has always been important to me. I think I mentioned before, when I was young, I didn't even think about it. It was just unstructured running around and play. I think what happened later in life, 27 years old, was an interesting time for me. I was living in California. I had a very sedentary job, which, didn't help the situation. But I was more back then, I was sort of a weekend warrior type guy. So the weekend would roll around, and I'm playing beach volleyball, I'm playing racquetball. I remember I ran a 10K without training for it. And then I paid the price, and then I came down with some back problems. And I was also I was a little bit overweight. I wasn't obese, but I could lose a few pounds. So it all came together, and I had a very bad herniated disc, L5-S1. I had sciatica pain. And I went to a neurologist, and to make a long story short, a surgeon was encouraging me to get surgery, and I never was an advocate for surgery. It's the last resort. So I had a neurologist that encouraged me to do 3 months of physical therapy, and literally I was in pain. I was spending more time laying on the ground than I couldn't even drive my stick shift car. I traded cars with someone because I couldn't push in the clutch. Wow. It was bad. And I was always, but I stuck with physical therapy. I had this thing called a TENS unit. It was stimulating the pain on my sciatica. And he kept encouraging me after I was done with physical therapy just to stick with it longer and longer. And I did. And I was 2 days away from surgery. And eventually it was a 9-month ordeal, but I felt fine. I think I built up just from PT, like scar tissue between the disc and the bone. And that was like a wake-up call for me. So from that day on, 27, every day I roll out of bed and I just stretch my back. Like, it's just automatic. I mean, I just, and that I've been pain-free in my back ever since then.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that was the first thing. The second thing I had, this was sort of uncharacteristic. I was 30 years old now, so this was 3 years later. I had unbelievable, what I thought like chest pain, you know. So I went, it wasn't diagnosed, and then I was in Russia on a work assignment, and I would get this pain. I want to climb the wall, you know. So, yeah, they started with the worst case scenario to rule out like cardio stuff. And it turned out it was diagnosed in a Russian military hospital, of all places, that it was my gallbladder. Okay, and I had gallstones that was sort of blocking the bile duct kind of thing. And now I wasn't going to get surgery in Russia. So first chance I got to come back to the U.S., I had my gallbladder removed, whatever they call it, a cholecystectomy or something like that. So, and that was like that was kind of weird for me because gallbladder tends to. I mean, I think medically it tends to affect women three times more than guys, and I was kind of young and stuff. So I had it removed. The guy said that I did not have to make any dietary changes, you know, because without the gallbladder, just the liver will like make bile and it'll just flow and to digest your food, a steady flow as opposed to like gallbladder, like the storage of that. So that was sort of a wake-up call as well. So after that, I just started watching my diet more because they said like fatty foods could trigger, you know, the gallbladder thing. So that was my medical history for 30 years, and then you know, I prided myself I didn't need any meds until right before 60. My brother got a checkup for his and found some things with his cardio. Okay, and the thing is, what that was interesting was, so that was a wake up call just for me to get checked out. Okay, because you know, my blood pressure was good, my sugar was good, my cholesterol was good, my LDLs were good, my HDLs were good, my weight was good, right? But there's one thing you can't control, and that's genetics. Okay, so a lot of times when you get cholesterol, what they do is there's these other tests that are not mainstream, as they do a deeper dive into your LDLs. Okay,
VLDL.
That's one of them, and there's calcium score, and there's lipoprotein A, and all that kind of stuff. So I had those tests done, and it could have gone a little better. I was in the moderate range. Okay, so I decided to. So in spite like lifestyle, exercise, diet, I can't control that. So I saw a cardiologist, and he recommended I'm like just taking a statin just to lower the LDLs, even though they weren't bad to begin with.
Okay. Yeah.
And a low dose aspirin. So
I know that VLDL one, it's, you know, it's same as what you're saying, genetic, and it just is what it is kind of thing. And
right.
So I think I'm in the same boat with you on that one. I'm going to have to keep my eye on it as years go by.
That's my advice to my kids as well. If you have a family history, you know, like, I don't know, do you know Peter Attia?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what you think about him.
Well, some recent information has been a little concerning.
About Epstein? Or? Oh, yeah. I know. Well, that's an aside. It seems like everyone's caught with Epstein. Yeah. Yeah.
But I actually, regardless of that, I do have his book. I haven't read it yet. Outlive? Okay. Yeah. So I have a copy of it.
I read that a few years ago. And again, I'm more of a simple guy, but there were two things that resonated with me in that book, if I can just mention real quickly.
Absolutely.
So he talked about two concepts. One was lifespan versus health span. Okay. So lifespan is how long you live. Okay. And then health span is how healthy you are for the course of your life. Okay. And what his concept was, is he tries to square the health span curve. So what that means basically is most people like 50s, 60s, you know, they go on a slow decline and it just gets worse and worse and worse and then they die. I mean, everyone's going to die, right? So that's what's typical. And the last years are miserable. Okay. So his concept is simply, you know, through diet and exercise and preventive, which is the other part of the thing, is why not try to keep your health span as high as possible for as long as possible, and then towards the end, just drop.
Yeah, maintain a plateau until that day comes.
Right. So that resonated with me.
Absolutely.
Because he talks about something called medicine 2.0 and 3.0, and traditionally our society is medicine 2.0, which is you get sick, you come down with something, you treat it, it's reactive.
Addressing symptoms rather than
yes,
preventative or underlying.
Exactly. So 3.0 is understanding your genetic history, understanding everything, and taking more lifestyle changes, more preventive type stuff than reactive type stuff.
Okay.
So those two
concept.
those two concepts resonated with me. So that was kind of like a philosophy I liked. And I know there's a lot of question, what role does genetics play versus, nature versus nurture type thing? I heard some things recently that maybe sound a little bit more discouraging, like genetics may play more of a role than you think. But what is it 70-30, 50-50, 30-70? But regardless, even if you could influence 30%, why wouldn't you try to make your life better with that 30%?
Absolutely. And, taking that a step further, something that I personally believe highly in is epigenetics, which is kind of the combination of the two, the environmentally, genetics that I guess are activated or deactivated by environment. So there's a book I read that was about diet and stuff like that, and it was just one of the authors was a twin, and so same genetics, and his brother was in a different. His brother was actually in the U.S. and this guy was in the U.K. And his brother, so he was outside of his normal environment, high stress, surrounded by fast food, whatever, and it triggered an epigenetic response of like binge eating and all these other. So there's a little different from what you're talking about, but I think it's a combinatory effect a lot of times of there's latent genetics that might just be waiting for that environmental trigger and everything's good until it isn't kind of thing.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, to your point, exercise and diet to this day are very important. In 2019, I, sedentary job, my weight was, again, it wasn't horrible, but it was insidiously like creeping up over time. You know how that happens? And like, whoa.
How'd I get here?
Yeah. So I decided during my lunch, I would like eat lunch at my desk. I just started walking every day at lunch in 2019. And then to this day, whatever, 7+ years later, I like to walk every day. It's not scientific, but if I look at my watch and even our trips, they're adventure, we're exercising. So one of the things I'm proud about is all these trips we've taken, including cruises, which, they're just, midnight buffets and everything. Like Pauline and I and whatever the kids is, we've always come back. We've never gained weight from one of our trips. We've either been, break even or even lost a little bit of weight. So,
that's impressive.
Yeah. So that's something I pride myself on.
I mean, 75 trips and you got that. That's pretty impressive.
So that was one thing. But the walking, I just started incorporating. So I know that I've averaged roughly over the last 7 years, 6.5 miles per day. So just doing the crude math, that's like close to 17,000 miles. And I'm projecting in 3.5 years, if I just keep up this walking pace, I'll hit 25,000 miles, which to me would be like the equivalent of walking around the equator. So that's just a personal goal.
Yeah, that's really impressive. And going along with what you said, I know something that they talk about a lot these days is 10,000 steps a day. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're well over that. So that's, if anyone out there who is looking for a hard number, something a little more tangible, that's something I would target. And it sounds like whether or not unknowingly, knowingly, that's been something that you've been able to achieve. So.
Absolutely. And walking to me, like if anyone just does one activity, that to me is the best thing you can do. Like try to walk if you can at a brisk enough pace where you just sort of, it's a little bit hard to talk while you're breathing. That would be just a good pace. You don't have to go crazy. But you'll see the benefits, and I think not only physically, it's mentally like the best thing you can do. I don't listen to any music when I walk. I like to kind of be in tune to my surroundings and nature, and that's just me. But I like to kind of be in the moment, and just it's so soothing for the mind as well.
That's interesting. You really hit on two of my kind of secondary questions there. One, which was the work-life balance, and you kind of described how you were able to make it work with walking on lunch, and how some of those aspects of the sedentary job, which very similar to myself, kind of a wake-up call for you. So that's something I'm going to try and incorporate. And secondarily, you know, the mental benefits as well. That's something I wanted to touch on too, is how the mental longevity, you know what I mean? So it's really interesting to see you attest to kind of a synergistic effect there. And it's funny how just through the nature of the conversation, you were able to kind of hit on those answers without even being asked.
Okay, that's cool.
So, yeah, so I guess the final question, and we can wrap up, is in recent years, you've become quite the pickleball player. And I'm curious, how did this interest start for you? And what's it like, you know, being a little bit older, but ascending through the ranks to, you know, experienced and I would say well qualified, respectable player from what I hear, you know, pretty high level competition.
Yeah, so it was a natural thing to do. I grew up playing a lot of tennis, racquetball, ping pong. Yeah. We played ping pong together. And so over the years, the last few years, you know, I've just decided to give up some things like that I used to play competitively because I don't need to compete anymore. I don't feel the thrill that maybe I did a little bit when I was younger. So like whatever, I gave up playing ice hockey organized. But I'm the first one on a pond. If it's frozen, I just like skating. I gave up organized softball. I was playing on a bar league, and these guys were like 10 times my size. I'm like, whoa. I was on a league where you got penalized for hitting a home run. I'm like, so at least, you know, I had warning track power, which actually was to my advantage. But like I started giving up things, and then it was funny. We were actually on a cruise in 2020. It was literally the day. It was during just when COVID started, February.
I remember this.
Yeah, and we were on a cruise, Pauline and I, and I was just running around like playing all the activities there. You know, she joked like I'd play ping pong or volleyball, dodgeball, and then like I'd run off and she'd do her own thing, and then I'd come back and I'd be wearing like another medal, and she's like, give someone else a chance. But anyway, the thing is, I ran into a guy there and his wife, and there was this thing pickleball. They had a net on the ship, and he introduced me to it. And I played, and I'm like, this is a pretty cool sport. Like, it's so easy to pick up. It's not, it's not as strenuous as tennis, and really the rest is history. I came back here and I started looking for a group to play with, and it's something I enjoy. I play with some people close to my age, but also people like in their 30s and 40s, and I find it, on that size court, I can keep up with people that age, and to your point before, I do a very basic couple times a week, like workout. Like I'm not trying to be the next, whatever, Arnold Schwarzenegger or who do you guys, The Rock? I don't know who you guys relate to. I'm dating myself, but I just try to just like tone and stuff and limber. And I can they call me sort of like the circus freak on the court because I can get low and make shots just from like trying to stay in shape. So
make it look easy.
Yeah. Well, but it's fun. It's fun. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm doing now mostly, and other than walking and biking.
Early adopter of the pickleball.
Yeah.
Because that was, what you said, COVID. I first heard of it like my senior year of high school. They brought it into gym class. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Never heard of it. So that's funny. You were an early adopter, and that's awesome. Just it's kind of funny. When I was driving in here, they got the YMCA pickleball center right up the street. Do you play there at all?
That's the only place I'm a member.
Okay, cool.
And it's a stone's throw away. I can go out in my backyard and walk there. If it snows, I can put on my snowshoes and get there. So it's really convenient.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, thank you. This is an excellent conversation, and I'd love to do it again. Maybe we could go over some more pictures, whatever the case may be, but I appreciate your time, and it was very insightful. So it was great for the viewer, listener. I'm sure you learned a lot. This is a wealth of knowledge over here, and like I said, love to do it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick, for having me. It was
Absolutely.
my pleasure. I had a good time.